Hey, Becca.
Hi, Adam.
How you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Thanks for hopping on.
My pleasure.
Now, you've been on PTDU about 6 months. What we're going to do today is just kind of talk about your experience so far. I want to get into some questions, kind of how your feedback has been so far. But just give us a big overview, kind of, first why you picked up the call, why you ended up coming on to PTDU, kind of some of your initial expectations.
Sure. So I've been working a lot for Medicare Part A in the state of Florida, and I was very overwhelmed with the paperwork aspect. So I got a phone call. I remember this. I was in Costco, and I got a phone call from a woman saying, and I forget her name. She had just the best presence about her.
Joanne.
Yes. And she says, we're interested in looking for Medicare Part B therapists. And I said, well, that's exactly what I'm looking for. And it was interesting because I think I had my resume on Indeed or something, maybe LinkedIn, and I wasn't actively looking. I mean, I'm always looking, but I wasn't actively looking. And she just reached out to me. So I said, absolutely, let's move forward because Medicare Part B is something that I've done a lot of in other states. And it was harder to find a niche market in Florida under Medicare Part B.
Amen. And I know when we spoke initially, we talked about how PTDU is not your typical Med Part B clinic. We're a little bit different of an experience. So talk about kind of when we first had that interview call and I spoke with, how different of an opportunity was. First, maybe what was going through your head, and then two, why you end up being excited about trying to build your own caseload.
Yes. Well, firstly, something that's unfortunately popular in the state of Florida is physical therapists are expected to evaluate, reevaluate, and discharge patients. And very rarely do they get to keep their own patients. And this was very, very challenging for me because I had been working in another state, which gave me free reign over my patients, and they were considered mine and only mine. And so that gave me a wonderful connection with the patients, but it also gave me the freedom as a professional to sort of choose exactly how I wanted to treat the patient and not have to deal with a plan of care and deal with co-signing on other people's stuff. Now, I will say this, and this is an aside, but in other states, when a physical therapist signs off on a PTA, if anything legally goes wrong, it always falls back on the physical therapist. And I have run into problems in the past where physical therapist assistants haven't followed the plan of care. And furthermore, issues happened. I've never been sued, thank heavens. And I want to keep it that
Yes.
way. But I also don't want to relinquish the control of giving my patient, which you know, I'm invested in them. I
Yes.
don't want to give that to somebody else and then see them periodically. It disrupts the relationship that I have with them.
100%. Even just sidebar talking about the state of home health in Florida, you're absolutely right. And the unfortunate reality when it comes to Part A and home health is that companies, especially if they're going out there banging the door for patients, marketing costs will continue to go up and up. And unfortunately, reimbursement goes down and down from the insurance side. So what you're left is big companies eating each other up and then driving the reimbursement rate for PTs down that you get per visit because all the other costs are going up. So in, 5, 10 years, that's going to be the unfortunate reality is if you're a PT working in the insurance, patient space, if you work for someone like that, a Part A home health agency, or even a Med B provider that's, getting you all your patients, you're going to be hostage to whatever they're giving you. And I've even had it come on my end where my rates got cut when I was working as a physical therapist for no rhyme or reason, just besides they said, hey, costs were going up, so we gotta cut your rates. There were no guarantees.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of what's different with PTDU and kind of going into this, because therapists are going out there and marketing themselves. That's one guarantee that we always promise is, hey, we're never going to be cutting anyone's rates because these are your patients. This is your work that you're bringing in. And this is how you're going to guarantee your independence and caseload and business going forward in the future of, the home health space in terms of Florida.
Yeah, so that was very appealing to me in terms of the way that you have structured your company. I actually really enjoy marketing. I like it a lot. I've done it a lot. And so therefore that piece for me was really a wonderful thing for me to be able to do because in the time that I've been in Florida, I took it upon myself to market myself because I'm a pelvic floor physical therapist. And that is very hard to do in the Medicare Part A realm because you've got these marketers, they have a very fat budget, but there's so much competition that basically if you are trying to market a specific service or yourself, which is what PTTU sort of endorses, is that it's impossible to do because you are one of hundreds and you don't stand out at all.
100%. And you're kind of going based off that, talk a little bit more about, a lot of physical therapists we talk to are a little bit burnt out. They're unhappy with the patients that they're seeing. This has allowed you to, go into your niche, which is the pelvic floor. So talk about maybe I don't want to call it work-life happiness, but the joy of being a physical therapist, the reason you got into it, the specialty of being pelvic floor, how has being able to see more pelvic floor patients because you've gone out and got them, maybe affected how excited you are being a PT and doing your day-to-day work.
It's incredibly exciting and empowering because when you leave a company up to market you, and there's nothing wrong with that, that's kind of nice. It can be very nice to have someone else market you, but they don't understand your personal touch. And a lot of marketers don't understand the pelvic floor. A lot of practitioners don't understand the pelvic floor. So half of my job has basically been community outreach and education. I'll go into a doctor's office and I'll start talking to the front desk staff about the pelvic floor. I will bring in
Yeah.
a plastic pelvis and I will start talking to people who are in the administrative end who might have pelvic floor problems themselves as young women, young men. And so I will start the conversation and they will say, in their minds, you can see it happening. They're, first of all, reviewing in their minds what's going on with them. And then they're reviewing how many people in that office have problems that are exacerbated by age, disability. So you can see how this is working in their brains and how they're actually going to help me spread
Yes.
the word. And so it's a very nice feeling to walk into an office and be well received and not just be shoved aside of, oh, you're bringing me donuts again.
Going based off that, a lot of therapists maybe aren't so comfortable, walking into a doctor's office, trying to flip that switch of saying, hey, I'm actually going to go out and try and get my own patients. It can be scary for a lot of therapists. Talk about when you came on to PTDU, some of the sales and marketing training that you had from our team and what you expected, what you were surprised by, and what you really liked about it.
Okay. Well, initially, what really I was intrigued by was marketing myself. And I thought, this could be very daunting, or it could be a key to open up more patients. So I was on the phone with you, Adam, and some other specialists who have different walks of life in physical therapy. So that was interesting because you're talking to people, people who are my age, younger,
Yeah.
older, who've all been in the field and have their own loves of the field and they are disenchanted with the field in the same way that I
Yeah.
feel. And so to speak to all these different people who have sort of embraced this model of how can we develop our own Part B caseload for ourselves? It was the first time I'd really ever had a conversation with anyone about that. And I've been doing
Yeah.
this for 27 years. So it was really cool to have the guidance of these external people. But then there was Savannah. Now, Savannah is this sort of firecracker of a
Yeah.
young woman. And she's a yoga instructor, but she's very fiery in a good way. And she actually went out marketing with me for the very first time. And I saw what she did because, I mean, for most physical therapists, sales doesn't come naturally to us.
Sure.
It just doesn't. Those two personality types don't often go hand in hand. But I saw the way that she did it and the way that she conveyed sort of positivity. And also, it wasn't a sales pitch. It was, how can we help each other? She
Yes.
framed it in such a way that people behind that desk, that glass desk, that daunting desk, were able to resonate with. And it was because of Savannah that I got my first lunch with a very key doctor who has since referred to me. So she allowed me to sort of walk into an office, even though I had done it before. This was different. This was a different way, a different approach that she had because she's not a physical therapist, but she's also not one of those sales marketing reps I had worked with in the past. So she gave me that confidence, but also that sort of feeling of you want to approach these people as though, again, you have something to give them. You are not selling a vacuum cleaner like it's the 1960s. You are giving them something that they otherwise would not have. If they don't call you back, that's okay. But if they do call you back, who knows what can happen?
Exactly. And we've talked about before in a lot of your trainings, therapists don't understand the leverage that they have as opposed to, a normal sales rep or marketer going into an office because of the fact that doctor is actually seeing and chatting with who they're actually sending the patients to. But a lot of therapists are just, out there seeing patients, so they don't really understand the power that they have walking into an office and trying to garner some patients for themselves in their said niche, just like how you did going into that doctor's office and starting to get some referrals that were sent your way. That's the big thing. So, and I'm happy that you do love our training and sales support. Also, let's switch to more operations. How has, documentation support, our office manager, our back end operation helped you continue to thrive?
Well, I've been working in Part A in Medicare for 3 years, and I have received almost zero training from any of those employers. And it was to the point where I would write a note and it was not up to their specifications. So I would be treated to a bunch of texts and emails for the next several days until
Yes.
I corrected said paperwork, got it back, and it was demoralizing. I'm not gonna
Yes.
lie. I felt foolish, young, and out of touch with reality and with technology. And then when I started the paperwork for PTTU, I was very pleasantly surprised with not only the ease of the product that you use, clinicians. I was also surprised by the level of support. So Adam would sit on the phone with me for upwards of an hour some evenings, just typing a note and really sitting there helping me. And I haven't received that kind of support since maybe I was a new graduate in the early
Yeah.
2000s.
Yes. We always talk about, I'd rather train out all of our therapists out front, take the time, get on calls with them, make sure they got it right. I've been a therapist working for multiple different home health agencies, Part B companies, and, they designate a manager or a documentation trainer who doesn't give you the time of day because they're too busy and they don't really care. And going back to building your own caseload, building your own book of patients, this is part of it. And that's where you get with coming with PTDU is the full end support from the sales and marketing to the back end to even getting your old patients back to you. That's kind of everything that we offer. And I know you've experienced, going from part A to part B, what are some things that have allowed you to, let's say, go more toward part B as opposed to wanting to do, the part A route?
Okay, so something about Medicare Part A, which is very challenging, is when you have a missed visit on a certain day, and you know in your heart of hearts that this patient is 20 miles from all of your other patients. If you absolutely have to cancel in Medicare Part B, you can do that without being penalized, which is a nice thing. And you just have a lot more flexibility in terms of the patient. The other thing that I really love about Med B is with Medicare Part A, there's a lot of pressure to prove that the patient is homebound. And I get it, those are the Medicare laws. With Medicare Part B, you have a lot more freedom in the types of patients that you can treat. You can have someone who can go to the grocery store, shop all day, but then has terrible pelvic pain as a result. So I love that there's a broader range of patients in Medicare Part B. And I love that you can see them for longer, and I love that you can spend more time with them in the home.
Amen. Good, good, good. Now, going to what did you, when you came on to PTU initially, and looking toward the future, what were you hoping to accomplish? I mean, what do you view yourself in a year, with PTDU, your caseload, how you view, the rest of your PT career? What do you envision that looking like with PTDU and your pelvic floor niche?
I feel as though the more this gets out there, the more there's going to be physicians and nurse practitioners who understand the product, which
Mhm.
is big. But also there's going to be more public awareness, which is also as big, which is going to grow a caseload that is close to home. In other words, that sort of word of mouth
Yeah,
of, oh my goodness, my uterus is prolapsed.
yeah,
And somebody came to my house and actually helped me deal with this, with urinary leakage of, oh, I had prostate cancer and I needed to wear a pad for 24 hours. And now I don't need that pad. And so the beauty of that is with Medicare Part A, you don't get the word of mouth. All you have is doctors who are aligned to companies. That's all you got. Medicare Part B, you have people who are devoted to you and the product, and they tell their friends. And before you know it, you have a network of essentially a community, a neighborhood a group, a social club, all of these people who are receiving the same service and are happy about it and don't have to fight the whole machine of the Medicare Part A and beg their doctor, no,
Yeah.
because I want this therapist, you have to assign me to that company. Only that Medicare Part A company never gave the steak dinner to the doctor. So it's not going to happen. So I
100%.
love the freedom and the sense of this is my hometown physical therapist. Do you have a
Yes.
hometown physical therapist? I do.
Yeah. And going to, there's a lot of therapists, especially in the state of Florida, that work for multiple different companies, whether it's Part B or Part A. The unfortunate thing is when you work PRN for multiple home health agencies, you can't really have a business for yourself. One, because patients, they have to be homebound for you to order to see them. Two, the home health care agencies are going to flip those to PTAs. Three, those aren't patients that you can, call back. There aren't patients that you can see again because of the parameters that the doctors need to have in order to write a prescription for that. When you're in Part B, their Medicare benefits reset every year and they want you back every year. Being in Part B allows you to build up your own business, build up your own caseload. So you do have your same patients coming back to you year after year and growing. Anyone on the fence who is working for a few different home health care agencies and is thinking about dipping their toes into the Part B, you're always going to be beholden to the agencies if you stick on that path. The quicker you switch over to Part B and start building up your caseload, that's the only way you're really going to have true security and freedom when it comes to the home health space and physical therapy in Florida. What would you say to that?
I absolutely wholeheartedly agree. And I remember working in an outpatient clinic. I
Mhm.
didn't love treating 4 people an hour, that's for
No.
sure. But I loved seeing the people who I had a relationship with return
Yes.
repeatedly. That part was extremely rewarding. So in this case, what you get is you're treating one-on-one, which is a great part of physical therapy. You're not going to get that everywhere, but you're getting the repeat customers and your reputation remains up there. Like the level of respect that I receive from the physicians who refer to me now and the patients who stick with me is much higher than when I was just a Medicare Part A physical
Yeah.
therapist churning out evals because I felt like I was pumping out paperwork for the federal government
Yeah.
much of the time. It was very
100%.
depressing.
Yeah. We were all in that same spot, being eval junkies for multiple different companies, them just taking those patients, passing along to the PTA, and then you totally forget what you got into physical therapy for, which was, for me, treating patients at the end of the day. And for others, it was niching down and trying to get into a certain, subsect like you with the pelvic floor people that you really ended up enjoying and that you really make a difference for in the community in the patients' lives. And then you also, you make the doctors look good because they're sending their patients to a specialist, as opposed to just writing whoever they have the best relationship with in terms of, different companies. When you're going into that office, they're entrusting you with all their patients' care. And you have that ability to be that person in your area, your local town, your community, whether it's the state of Florida or abroad, across the country. You have the power to be that person and take back control of your career, especially if you're a home health therapist. It doesn't look good if you stay on the current route you're in. The only way to kind of secure that, like we just talked about, is trying to be that Part B person who is out there banging the door and trying to get their own patients. So talk about quickly, a week in the life of you, Becca, between seeing patients, how often are you going into a doctor's office? What does that balance look like doing it all and trying to build up your caseload?
For me, I would say I treat about 20 to 30 patients a week.
Mhm.
And what I do, what's so cool about now that my territory is more honed into near my
Yes.
house, is that it's very easy to swing by a physician's office or a nurse practitioner's office in between patients. So it's almost seamless. So it's not like I'm setting aside time. I'm popping by. And then my face becomes the product, and then they know me, and the front desk recognizes me. So it doesn't become this formal, I must see this doctor and I must stay there for X amount of time.
Yeah.
No, or you're just basically, it's almost like knocking on a door
Yeah.
and saying, hello, here I am. And if anybody needs anything, I'm here. Just let me know. And that's a personal relationship. And Medicare Part A companies, when they come in with those big baskets, that's all people remember is the food. And food's lovely, but they're not remembering the person or the product.
Go ahead. Good. So you said about 20, 30 patients a week. You feel like you're popping in the doctor's office, between your patients, I'd say maybe once or twice a week. What would you
Yeah.
say? Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
And then the
Yeah.
documentation, how long does it take you to do up your notes?
Oh, it's so easy, especially
Okay.
compared to Medicare Part A. It's great.
Amen. Good. 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 What would you say to someone on the fence or maybe not wanting to take the jump into trying to build up their own caseload, trying to recommend PTDU to them, maybe trying to explain it in your own words and then maybe why they should join?
Don't be afraid to market yourself. That was the thing that held me back for a really long time. Don't be afraid of that. You have nothing to lose. Honestly, these people are these doctors' offices are bombarded with salespeople.
Yeah.
It is a constant for them. And if you can be the one person to stand out, that's wonderful. And also, just don't let yourself lose complete hope in your profession. And I know this sounds a bit crazy, but I was going through such a hard time a couple of months ago, and there's many funeral parlors in the state of Florida. And I actually thought maybe I should switch gears entirely because I'm empathetic and I could help in a funeral setting. And then I
Mhm.
thought, get yourself together. And it was then actually that
Yeah.
I joined PTDU because I said, there has to be a way out of this. And I will say that when I would call Medicare Part A companies and I would say, do you have a need for a PT? I was actually told, we do as long as you're only going to do our evaluations. And they said, frankly, we've had bad experiences with physical therapists in the past because they won't relinquish their patients.
Sure.
So I thought if there's a way that I can keep my patients in the way that I did,
Hmm.
and I can really help people.
Yeah.
that- Again, my one stumbling block was actually marketing myself. And I have a very extroverted personality, but that was the thing I was scared of. And it was Savannah who took me by the hand and she says, well, we're doing this. And
Yeah.
that's what we did. We went to 5 different doctors the first day. And she says, did you see that? She taught me how to read energy of just that doctor's office you did really well in. That one you didn't, but it's not your fault. You can tell they're very corporate. So there was that learning curve of these people in the doctor's offices, they're just like you. They're unhappy
Yeah.
and they want
Yeah.
their lives to be better, right? They're just
Agreed.
like you. So if you could
100%.
talk to them and develop a relationship with them, it's only going to lead to better things for healthcare across the board.
Like I said, the quicker you start, the quicker those relationships build, and then it starts pouring in. And when it comes to marketing too, the work is up front, and then it's so much easier just to maintain a relationship that you have once it's going. And that's where, people are always worried, oh, do I got to be banging doors, every week, all week for, the rest of my career. And you know this, when you start those referrals coming in from that office, once you see one of their patients and you do good for them, and their patient goes into the office and starts singing your praises, that doctor knows that they have someone they trust, and then the floodgates start opening for you.
Yes. And that same patient goes and tells their
Yes.
friend in their pickleball group.
Yeah.
And that all gets a connection. Whereas if you tried that in Medicare Part A, it wouldn't go anywhere. It just
Yeah.
wouldn't.
Very good. Very good. So the future of PTDU, as you see it for yourself, just a few parting words on how you want, the rest of your career to look with physical therapy in the home setting, Medicare Part B, and how you view it.
I would love for the rest of my career, well into my 70s, I would really like to just continue on the Part B level with pelvic floor and have
Good.
that sort of be the sort of very calm and relaxed pace that I
Yeah.
recall from the early 2000s. Physical therapy was a different industry and
Yes.
it was really fun then. And I want to bring that back, the fun.
Good. Good. Well, we look forward to partnering up with you and working, for many years to come and continuing to help you build and grow.
Excellent. I'm delighted. Thank you.
Thank you, Becca. We can kind of cut it there.